On this Thursday night, Air Canada hopes to land a bailout. How refunds could be waiting in the wings for customers as the airline negotiates with Ottawa. More hope on the horizon, the growing optimism more Canadians will be vaccinated sooner. The federal government sides with commercial fishers.
I think that path takes right down colonization.
The new chapter in a dispute over Indigenous fishing rights. And battle royale.
I don't know how they could expect we would still just be silent.
New accusations from Meghan Markle against Buckingham Palace.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Anyone who loves to travel can't wait to get back on the move. And those who are still waiting for refunds for old airline tickets are still wondering when or if they'll get their money back. There are hints tonight Air Canada is moving closer to refunding thousands of passengers, but only if it gets a bailout from the federal government. Negotiations with the airlines have been going on for months. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, has been asking questions about what progress has been made, and he has our top story tonight.
Just couldn't give me a refund. And I find that absolutely unbelievable.
Terry Quiros is like thousands of Canadian airline passengers, frustrated and angry that airlines have still not returned money paid for flights not taken because of the pandemic. WestJet has had a refund program of sorts in place since the fall, and now Air Canada is promising the same, says one of Air Canada's unions, but only if the airlines get access to federal government cash. But Ottawa wants more from the airlines than just a promise to refund unused tickets.
There was a lot of issues, that had to be dealt with, including the controversial issue of Air Canada repaying the customers. So these issues have all been dealt with, from what I understand. We're talking large money. We're talking a loan, not a bailout.
Indeed, Unifor says one option on the table was a loan to the airlines worth $7 billion to be repaid over 10 years with a minimal interest rate of 1% a year. The terms of that financial arrangement are still not settled, and indeed, that may be the sticking point. When negotiations began in November, the Trudeau government said it also wanted commitments from the airlines to restore service to routes that were cut or dropped, and it wants to protect or restore jobs in the airline sector. No one could say when a deal will get done, though one federal minister, Catherine McKenna, said good progress is being made.
We've been really clear that refunds are a precondition to any deal. That is extremely important. We all hear from Canadians who want to be compensated, who want to get their refunds.
Airline passengers, though, are frustrated with the delay.
The federal government has proven to be unreliable and unworthy of the public trust in terms of enforcing passengers' rights.
David Akin, Global News, Ottawa.
There is growing optimism more Canadians could get vaccinated sooner than originally expected. With more provinces moving to extend the time between the first and second doses and the prospect of more vaccines being approved, every Canadian who wants one might get one before the end of September. There is still a long way to go, though. Right now, more than 1.6 million Canadians have received at least one dose. That works out to just over 4% of the population, and just over 550,000 people are now fully vaccinated with 2 doses. Delaying the second dose by 4 months will mean more Canadians get at least some protection with 1 dose sooner. Michael Couteur explains what more we know about those shifting timelines.
We expect that our timelines will be reduced overall.
Ontario's health minister believes more people will be able to get their first vaccine sooner than originally expected. Federal officials had set September as the target time for when every Canadian could get at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. But new guidance from the National Vaccine Advisory Panel suggesting a longer lag time between doses means more people could be protected earlier.
We would be able to cover the vast majority of the Canadian population, or the same population, in a advanced timeline, or moving it up by several weeks.
When pressed, Dr. New refused to be more precise, but one Atlantic premier already has a date circled on the calendar.
We should be able to get every Nova Scotian their first dose by the end of June.
Saskatchewan is looking at the same time frame. Now, the accelerated timeline is also being helped by increased delivery of vaccines. It's expected Canada will get 769,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine per week for the first 2 weeks of April. And 1.3 million doses of the Moderna shot are coming in the next 2 weeks. Still, premiers complain it hasn't been quick enough.
I do not think it's acceptable that Canada is 44th in the world in per capita administration of COVID-19 vaccines. I think it's an embarrassment.
A part of that could be due to vaccine hesitancy, which is a problem in every country. And officials know it's an uphill battle when there are changes to guidelines, like for the time between doses.
Definitely the messaging would be simpler if we had one set of data and we had one message and it never changed. But that's not what science does.
People have to understand science is an evolving thing. What is true today may be altered tomorrow when we learn something more.
Now, Health Canada says approval of the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine should be coming within the next week. However, delivery of those shots may only start in April at the earliest. Donna?
Okay, Michael Couteur in Ottawa tonight. Thanks. Health Canada is taking steps to fast-track the approval of booster shots for the new variants of concern. The agency says if manufacturers of already approved vaccines come out with a booster shot, they will not have to go through a brand new approval process. Instead, they will have to provide proof showing the booster is safe and effective. The move by Health Canada should help speed up the rollout if updated vaccines are developed. In Edmonton, a senior's home is facing serious questions after an outbreak involving one of the highly contagious variants. So far, 36 staff and residents at the Churchill Manor have tested positive for the virus. At least 19 are confirmed variant cases. The daughter of one of the residents who tested positive says the home began easing COVID-19 rules 2 weeks ago before residents were fully vaccinated.
I don't know what made them do this, but someone has to be accountable. Because there's no doubt in my mind that the COVID came in because they opened everything up too fast.
The company that operates Churchill Manor told Global News it did start easing rules in mid-February. Precautions were escalated after the first positive case. The company says they are doing everything possible to protect residents and staff. An Ontario doctor has been formally cautioned by regulators for spreading misinformation about COVID-19 online. Dr. Kulvinder Gill was issued 3 separate cautions by Ontario's College of Physicians and Surgeons after complaints over a series of comments she made on Twitter. According to the college, Gill wrote, "There is absolutely no medical or scientific reason for this prolonged, harmful, and illogical lockdown." And she tweeted, "If you have not yet figured out that we don't need a vaccine, you are not paying attention." In its decisions, the college said it has no interest in shutting down free speech. It called Gill's tweets inappropriate, unprofessional, and a potential risk to public health.
All physicians hold a position of trust in our society as members of the college, and the college expects physicians to behave professionally.
Gill could not be reached for comment. As part of her discipline, she must attend the college to receive a verbal caution about her conduct. For more details on that case, we have a full story on our website, globalnews.ca. Canada's premiers met virtually today, and though they disagree on lots of things, they were unanimous about one thing, wanting more health care funding from the federal government. The premiers say issues that existed before COVID-19 have been exacerbated by the pandemic. Manitoba's premier warns a post-pandemic pile-up is coming because elective surgeries, tests, and other procedures have been delayed.
According to the Canadian Institute of Health Information, before COVID struck us, the wait times had grown in the last 20 years by about 2.5 times, meaning you used to wait from general practitioner to treatment about 2 months. Now you wait closer to 6 months. This isn't the Prime Minister's fault, except if he ignores the problem, and then it becomes his fault.
The premiers want the federal government to increase its share of healthcare funding to 35%, which would add about $28 billion and bring the federal share to $70 billion. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has acknowledged the federal share must eventually increase, but he has told premiers that will have to wait until after the pandemic. There is a major development tonight in the dispute over Indigenous fishing rights in this country. The federal government has announced a new plan to regulate how and when Indigenous fisheries can operate. It has been a contentious issue in Nova Scotia that at times has turned violent. As Ross Lord reports, it's still not clear if this will resolve that tense situation.
Amid the tension and violence surrounding Indigenous fishing rights, a voice both sides blame for being indecisive has finally taken a position. Fisheries Minister Bernadette Jordan is siding with commercial fishers on a key issue: when First Nations harvesters are entitled to fish. In a statement, Jordan says these fisheries will operate within established seasons. She says integrating everyone into the same season using already available licenses makes sense.
The seasons are something that we have in order to make sure stocks stay plentiful, to make sure that stocks are sustainable.
Jordan says she will license First Nations fisheries, ensuring they can sell their lobsters legally. She calls it a path forward. But the chief of the Sipekne'katik First Nation, whose members were subjected to violent protests last fall, suggests it's a step in the wrong direction.
I think that path takes you right down colonization. For us, it's very discouraging what she said, and it was even hard to believe and hard to read that she would even try to pull that on us. Very unfortunate.
The Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs also opposes the plan, and they're not alone. The federal NDP accuses the government of failing to uphold Mi'kmaq treaty rights, and Dalhousie fisheries researcher Megan Bailey says the minister should not be telling Mi'kmaq when to fish. She should be moving over and making space to support Mi'kmaq-governed moderate livelihood plans. A group that represents commercial fishers supports Jordan, while admitting the number of Indigenous lobster traps is tiny compared to the number fished by its members.
What may seem as a small fishery last year could have eventually evolved into a huge fisheries access.
Jordan has still not defined the term moderate livelihood. The rights of Indigenous fishers to fish for one are protected by a 1999 Supreme Court decision. But Chief Sachs says he's not concerned about that omission.
No, we're actually going to define that ourselves.
Sachs says Sipekne'katik harvesters will be out fishing again in the spring, regardless of what the fisheries minister says or does. Ross Lord, Global News.
Washington, D.C. on high alert. Coming up, new threats of violence at the U.S. Capitol. Plus, a perfect landing turned explosive.
Ignition. We have liftoff.
The launch was flawless. Elon Musk's Starship rocket had a perfect test flight. This is a prototype of a reusable rocket. It's hoped will one day take humans and cargo to the moon and to Mars. Its landing looked amazing and appeared to be perfect, but there were flames at the base of the rocket, and about 8 minutes later, this happened. The unmanned rocket exploded. The fact it landed in one piece, though, is considered a success. There will be many more test flights. Elon Musk wants his rockets flying people regularly by 2023 and tweeted, RIP SN10, honorable discharge. In Washington, tight security is still in place because of fears of a repeat of the violence earlier this year at the U.S. Capitol. Trump supporters and conspiracy theorists believe March 4th was the day that he would return to power. And as our Washington bureau chief Jackson Proskow reports, this time, police are taking no chances.
The threat was serious enough to station extra troops behind the razor wire and for the House to cancel all business for the day.
We do have some concerning intelligence. That intelligence is law enforcement sensitive.
A bulletin from the FBI and Homeland Security warned this was a target date for violent groups who talked about taking control of the U.S. Capitol and removing Democratic lawmakers. A plot eerily reminiscent of the January 6th attack.
We have to ensure with our security that we are safe enough to do our job.
In pro-Trump circles, March 4th is important. It's the date followers of the QAnon conspiracy theory believed the former president would return and be inaugurated for a second time.
The plan that they believe in and the kind of storm that they're waiting for has simply not materialized in any meaningful way.
Julian Field hosts a podcast that investigates QAnon. He warns followers are rarely dissuaded by false predictions and could turn to violence out of frustration.
When those hopes are dashed, they could be moved to either individual or collective action.
That's precisely what has law enforcement so worried. This week, the FBI director revealed there are 2,000 active investigations underway into domestic terrorists, white supremacists, and far-right militias.
The problem of domestic terrorism has been metastasizing across the country for a long time now, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Do you miss me yet? Do you miss me?
Much of it links directly to Donald Trump's lies about a stolen election, which the former president refuses to tamp down.
Actually, as you know, they just lost the White House, but it's one of those things.
Understanding that the potential threat could be long-term, U.S. Capitol Police have asked the National Guard to remain in place for the next 2 months. The fencing and razor wire could be here even longer. Donna?
Okay, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. Ahead, how much can protesters in Myanmar endure as they fight against the generals who seized power? That is the sound of a tsunami warning in New Zealand. People raced for higher ground after 3 powerful earthquakes struck off the coast of New Zealand. Several tsunami warnings have been issued there, and at one point, there was even a warning for the coast of British Columbia. That has now ended. The largest quake was a magnitude 8.1. It struck northeast of New Zealand's North Island at 8:30 in the morning. The generals who seized power in Myanmar are now overseeing a bloodbath. Security forces are shooting protesters on the streets. At least 38 people are reported to have been killed by soldiers and police on Wednesday, the harshest crackdown since the coup in February. Tonight, the faces of those killed sparked a new flashpoint for pro-democracy demonstrators, demanding the military stand down and return the civilian government to power. Eric Sorensen reports, and a warning: some of the images in his story are graphic.
A man takes these pictures of a patrol. A soldier spots him. The shot missed, but Myanmar's military has clearly taken aim and would prefer no one sees what's happening. In the civilian protests against the military's coup was a 19-year-old known as Angel. Kyaw Sin wore a T-shirt that said, "Everything will be okay." She was shot in the head and killed. The UN has counted 54 protesters killed, but believes the real number is much higher.
It is utterly abhorrent that security forces are firing live ammunition against peaceful protesters across the country.
Myanmar, also known as Burma, has long been shrouded from the outside world. Elections have only been held since 2010, when popular leader Aung San Suu Kyi's party won a landslide vote in November over candidates backed by the army. Military leaders slammed the door shut on democracy. Yet a younger generation of demonstrators who want real change are not backing down.
Myanmar is very different today than it was in the past. This coup has really mobilized resistance against the military in a way that we haven't seen before.
The international community is imposing limited sanctions.
Our measures are going to continue to be very tightly targeted at the members of the military.
Experts say that will help, but the real difference may be what's happening on the ground, where political groups and government workers and different religious leaders are finding common cause. It's our right to get democracy, they chant.
We may be seeing in some ways the start of a more comprehensive, a deeper, a farther reaching revolution than what we've had in Myanmar before.
Kyaw Sin, Angel, is the latest hero to be mourned by the people of Myanmar. Emotions are intense, despondence over the dead, fortitude and fury in the streets, and when the bullets fly, fear for their lives. But it seems they'll keep coming back. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Next, allegations against the Duchess of Sussex. Are they signs of a royal family feud? There is an update tonight on Prince Philip's health. Buckingham Palace says the 99-year-old Duke of Edinburgh has undergone a successful procedure for a pre-existing heart condition. He's expected to stay in hospital for several more days of rest and recuperation. While the Queen worries about her husband's health, another family drama is erupting. CBS has now released another teaser from that upcoming tell-all interview with the Queen's grandson, Prince Harry, and his wife, Meghan. She tells Oprah Winfrey Buckingham Palace is perpetuating falsehoods about her and Harry. And as Redmond Shannon reports, the couple who said they wanted to withdraw from the limelight are putting themselves right back into it.
Relations between the royal relations were bad enough already. And then came this new preview clip from Oprah Winfrey's interview.
I don't know how they could expect that after all of this time, we would still just be silent if there is an active role that the firm is playing in perpetuating falsehoods about us.
The firm, a euphemism for the royal family. This week, just after the first Oprah clip was released, a newspaper report alleged the Duchess of Sussex faced allegations of bullying in Kensington Palace in 2018. A response from Buckingham Palace Wednesday said the royal household will not tolerate bullying or harassment in the workplace.
For more than a year, the palace and the Sussexes have tried to paper over the cracks of their difficult relationship, at least in public. But now there can be little doubt but that this is a family feud.
One newspaper summed it up very well, I think, this morning when they called this all-out war at the palace.
Royal expert Phil Dampier says the allegations against Meghan had been rumoured, but the timing of the report is probably no coincidence.
Obviously, people at the palace are trying to get their punch in first, as it were. But it's very, very sad because, of course, this is all against the background of Prince Philip being in hospital.
A sadness shared by some Londoners.
Whatever we've been hearing, it's just not nice. Not for the monarch, not for the country, not for anyone.
It's a shame anyway when siblings are at loggerheads. I think it's such a shame, whatever family they come from.
The full interview, Oprah with Meghan and Harry, airs Sunday evening on Global. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
And that's Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Lake Nipissing, a remnant of the glacial lake Algonquin near West Nipissing, Ontario. There are beautiful spots all over Canada. Please email us yours to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.